So this shift in consciousness that also seems to be physical. What is happening? I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of conversation around this online and also in coaching circles, um, as astrology circles, friendship circles. Yeah, people can feel, those who can. There seems to be an interesting, like, here's all the people, and it seems like there's this thing happening where this group feels all this and this group doesn't. So what is going on? Um, for a while now, people have talked about this coming shift, this huge shift of consciousness. And it's talked about in a variety of ways that can sound a little woo and out there. But the more people are starting to experience this shift, for lack of a better word, the more people are taking it seriously. I know way decades ago, I heard something like this and I thought it was totally wacko. So, and then I started, based on the people who were saying it, maybe about 10 years ago, I started to pay a little more attention. Well, maybe longer than 10 years ago, maybe like 15, 16 years ago, I started to pay a little more attention. And then about 10, maybe 12 years ago, I started really starting to sit up and take notice because I could feel it. And the more you feel it personally, the more you're probably taking notice. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, you're probably not feeling it. I'm going to list some symptoms, like a lot of them physical. There's some physical, some mental, emotional, some spiritual symptoms, and the list could be really long. I'm just going to list the ones I identify with the most. They make the most sense to me, but I've heard a lot of other people have these in common. So we'll talk about the symptoms and then what is happening. I mean, at the end of the day, people don't really know. Like, there's no one person in charge who like has all the answers. So it's all kind of just trying to get to grips with, what the personal experience is for you, what you feel like, what it's like for you, how has it changed your life? I mean, that's at the end of the day, you only really know yourself and your own experience. But we can talk about this does seem to be a collective experience for so many. I'm not sure what percentage of the population. I have no idea. My best guess is it's way more than half. It doesn't feel like a 50-50 thing. Um, I know in the United States, because of politics, people would tend to think, oh, it's like, divided along political lines, but it has nothing to do, this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do, it's bigger and deeper than that and has nothing to do with politics. In fact, I know I know many people on the opposite side of where I sit politically and have, healthy relationships with people on many sides of the table. And they're experiencing this too, to some degree. So it has nothing to do with politics or political ideology at all, at all. It's way bigger and deeper than that. So just get that out of the way. So don't divide. That's how people tend to divide, at least in the United States. I'm not sure about everywhere. We tend to divide things. We've been conditioned and programmed, I think, to do this, to start to divide people into political groups. And people are not divided into political groups, only by political leaders and, the powers that get more powerful from political leaders. They like to divide people that way, but we're not actually, we're not born into this world to be divided this way. So there's something bigger going on. I'll get off my little soapbox about politics, but I just want to be clear. Don't divide people in your mind this way. While it does seem like some people are experiencing all of this, it could be that the others who aren't are just later, they just haven't, not yet, they haven't, or they have, it's not as profound. Because I mean, as I opened this video, I said, couple of decades ago, I thought it sounded ridiculous. I had no idea what people were talking about. And then about 15 years ago, I started to pay attention and think, and then I started to feel it shortly thereafter, and I experienced it. And now I take it seriously. And I think it could be some kind of curve like that, where, some people a lot of people, like a big bulk of the population is starting to really feel like, what is going on? I literally feel this in my body and mind, whatever this is, this shift. And then there's some people who are like, maybe, but nah. But I would say it's a not yet. So it's not like we're really being divided. It's more like a process is my best guess. And again, I know nothing. I know nothing. It's all speculation. Everybody who's talking about it, it's all speculation. They can claim to have not special knowledge. It's interesting to listen to people who say they have special knowledge. Certainly interesting. But this idea about the shift in consciousness has actually been around for many thousands of years. So it's not even a new thing. It's just new to those who are discovering it now. It's this idea that this time would come when there would be this big consciousness shift, whatever that means. This idea's been around for thousands of years. So we seem to be in a time, and maybe this isn't something that just only happens once. Maybe it happens at various times in human growth and evolution. I have no idea, but I'll list some of the symptoms that people seem to talk about that I personally relate to. Because I think at the end of the day, we have to go into our own experience to feel the authenticity and validity of any of this, because it's so new and weird feeling. It does feel, when you look at the world around us, like the world is definitely going through a drastic shift, a drastic change. But there's also something not nearly as alarming going on inside of us. Those of us who are feeling this, the shift inside of us is not nearly as scary as looking at the world can be. And I think this is why it's important to talk about, because the only experience we can really authenticate is our own. So if internally you notice less scary, dramatic things happening, but that's your authentic experience, it's really important to ground yourself by touching base with that. The world can seem totally crazy right now, totally insane and scary. But then, and some of these symptoms, it's not like all these symptoms are positive or feel like awesome all the time, but overall, it's a more positive grounding experience to think about how you feel, even if you're having all these symptoms. So I'll try to go through these quickly so we don't spend too much time on it. And again, you don't have to have, I guess Zoom is agreeing with this. Don't spend too much time on this. You don't have to have every single one of these, but you do need probably a fair number of these to really feel it, I think. So again, you may not have every single one. Do you feel like spending more quiet time than you used to? Just a little more quiet time. You value that more than you used to. Nature, being outside. It could just be on a patio, a deck, walking around your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be like intense, extreme nature, but just, do you feel like being outside more? Do you really appreciate being outside more? Maybe your lifestyle doesn't allow you to go outside as much as you'd like, but do you yearn for it? Authentic connection. Are you yearning for authentic connection? Not just any old connection with people, not just hanging out with any old people, but a feeling of really connecting authentically with people. There's this yearning people have. Do you feel on the whole, when you look at yourself a year ago, 5 years ago, 10, 20, that you're less judgmental than you used to be? And what seems to be counterbalancing that and filling that vacuum of judgment that you don't feel as much of anymore, is there more compassion and a sense of kindness and compassion towards your fellow man, no matter who they are? That you're willing, even if someone's very different from you, even if it's like a group of people in the past may have been like, I just don't like that group of people. I don't want to be around that group of people. I don't agree with what they believe. They could live in a foreign land. They could just have a very different lifestyle. Maybe you look at people like this and you think, I don't really feel any huge, and it's more than neutral. Like I care about people more. So that group, even though I don't quite get that group, do you feel a softness or an opening and less judgment and more ability to be accepting, more compassion, more fatigue. This is one of the symptoms that's not always awesome, but um, fatigue that comes and goes. If it's not even like it's every day or all day long, but like this weird, you can just suddenly be seriously fatigued and need to go to bed early or take a nap, or you just feel it. Uh, at the same time, that fatigue can alternate with almost superhuman ability to get things done, like in a good energy, not driving yourself to do it, but you just feel like, wow, I have so much energy and focus right now. So it's this alternating fatigue and like superhuman energy and focus. Likewise, sleep disturbances that alternate with the best sleep of your life. So sleep dysregulation that seems to come and go, but also when you are sleeping, it can sometimes be the best sleep you've ever had in your life. You feel like, wow, that was a good sleep. Appetite changes. So what this looks like is it's a tendency away from heavier, denser foods toward lighter, brighter, more watery foods. So it tends, because of that, it's a tendency away from red meat. Even if you still eat red meat, this counts. Do you have less appetite for it? Even if you still love bacon, do you have less appetite for it? Like you just don't want it as frequently. You're just as happy having the vegetarian omelet for breakfast rather than bacon. There's a tendency toward fruits and vegetables. Do you notice that you're kind of sliding in that direction overall? You could still be a carnivore, but you just notice a tendency. Or maybe you've really gone through a big swing, like you were a carnivore and you ate processed foods and you were totally happy there. And then you just lost your appetite for it and you are a vegetarian eating no sugar, or a vegan eating no sugar. Some people's shifts are more extreme, but sometimes it's a continuum. You're somewhere in there where you've shifted away. Ears ringing, like intermittent ear ringing, tinnitus, it comes and goes. It may be mostly gone most of the time, but then if you pay attention, it's there, or sometimes it's really strong. Vision changes. Now, part of vision change can be very natural and part of aging, but would you say, yeah, there's just something going on with my vision? Um, Random moments of extreme calm where you think, wow, I feel really calm. And you may have a history of anxiety but you're like, wow, what's this new feeling I have? I've never had it before. Oh, it's calm. I think it's calm and peace. Um, Overall, are you in a shift away from materialism toward being less materialistic? And of course, people are going to be in all different stages of this. So what one person's less materialistic looks like is not what another person's less, some people are like they've gone off the grid and they live in a shack with no water or heat, no furniture. And that's totally fine if you want. I don't want to do that, but totally fine if you do. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be extreme, just like the food thing, but it's just a tendency away from materialism, just whatever that looks like for you. Things are less important. The importance of things has come down. Being less driven toward, kind of societal goals, I would say. So maybe you still have important goals and things you really want to do, but you're less that quote unquote driven, like the grinding teeth driven. Trying to think, there were a couple others I thought of while I was going through this list, and now they've gone out of my head. but there are others. And I could really, the list is quite long. One time I made a list and it was like 50 things, but I didn't want this to be too long. So anyway, oh, spiritual. Spiritual. Do you find that you feel like you're deepening or want to deepen your spiritual side? Are you on kind of a pathway there where that feels like something you want to do? And whatever that looks like to you. So do you just want to deepen your spiritual nature? And again, that could look like anything. Oh, I know what the one was, feeling more intuitive, feeling a little more psychic, intuitive in a tiny, it doesn't have to be a big way, like suddenly you can, predict the lottery numbers, but it's just in little ways. Do you feel like there are little synchronicities where you kind of knew something would happen, or you just kind of knew the right way to go, or the right something, or you just knew, and so they could be tiny, but you feel like your intuition has deepened as well. So those are some little things just to notice. And so you're a part of this shift, and it feels internally, if you don't look at the outside world, it feels internally like it's really cool. It's weird. I've never experienced all these things before. It's weird and unusual, but it doesn't feel bad. How's it feel to you internally if you don't look at the outside world? When we do look at the outside world, it can be pretty alarming. So there's that shift going on. And then there's this internal shift going on. They are related. It's hard to see how, but they are related. Um, but I think the more important shift is the one going on in each one of you. So pay attention and ground yourself by noticing your own internal shift and follow it. Follow the desire to deepen your spirituality. Follow what your body tells you to consume, if it's moving in this healthier direction. There's also a shift away from heavier drinking or heavier substance use. Again, it's all on a sliding scale, so what that looks like for you may be different for what it looks like for someone else. Someone else may have totally, be abstaining from alcohol, not because they're an alcoholic, it's a choice, or they just lost their taste for it. They don't want it anymore. And maybe you've just gone from having a glass of wine every other night to once a week, so it's going to look different for each person, but is the shift away from substances, especially like alcohol or anything like really hardcore. I think there's a shift toward, there seems to be a shift toward mushrooms and other things that are more like, things you could really pick out of your garden kind of thing. Not something you would buy on the street, but there seems to be, so it's like an interesting confluence there. But overall, I would say alcohol in particular, for most people, they might be able to identify with that desire lessening to some degree. And again, not everyone's going to be feeling it. Some people just have not felt it yet. But some people, this is a really strong sense of something big changing inside of them, while they also watch the world like dissolve. And how does that make you feel? Like, what do you think is the potential there? I know people talk about things like ascension, going 5D. What else? Ascension, 5D, raising your frequency, your vibration. Um, if you're super, super religious, some people are thinking in terms of like the end of days kind of thing and the rapture. These are all ways people try to grapple with big shifts like this. I do think it's a big shift in consciousness, but it also seems to be in the body. It's not just the consciousness. Unless you can look at life as everything's consciousness. I mean, there is in physics kind of a branch of a part of physics that's saying everything is consciousness, and maybe it is a big shift in consciousness, and that includes our bodies, because our bodies are a part of, maybe created by this consciousness, who knows. So how are you looking at this? What do you think it means? Who have you been reading or paying attention to? What speaks to you? Um, if I think about it myself, I mean, looking at the astrology, you can definitely do astrological analysis on it, but then it becomes very removed from the individual experience. I think this is such a personalized experience. I don't really want to apply astrology to it. It's definitely you could analyze it using astrology, but I choose not to as much. Maybe I'll feel more in the mood to do that at a different time. But this is what I really like to encourage people to do, especially people who work with me, is go into your own experience. What is this like for you? How do you feel? Do you feel hopeful about the future? When you go inside, not when you look at the world, but when you go into this change that's going on inside of you, why do you think that's happening? What would the result, what are the possibilities of if everyone's starting to do this? What are some of the possibilities that could be good? What's interesting about it to you? At the end of the day, I don't know if any one human being really has the answer. I'm certainly not going to claim to have the answer. I am going to claim to be a part of this experience. I definitely can't deny that it's happening. And again, a couple of decades ago, I would have thought that somebody like me talking about this would have been crazy. But I can't deny that it's happening. So if I'm swept up into feeling all this stuff, what is happening? And where are you in this? I'd love to hear. All right, take care.